All right, we're live. It's good to see you all. We've got a couple of people already in the room, so let's have some fun. We're gonna try and go right into things with today's workout. Again, the show is kind of once a week. It is once a week. It is once a week. It used to be every day for 40 straight days. You know, minus every 10th day. Hopefully we won't have a significant reason to bring back that format anytime soon, but if we do, we will. Yep. In the meantime, what we're gonna go into today is kind of an applied piece of research. Abra and I have been studying... Good morning, Graham. Good to see you. Abra and I have been studying our ISSA textbooks. I believe that's the International Sports Science Association. And we're both getting through it pretty well. We're a little bit behind, but...
A couple of extensions.
Yeah, a few extensions. Part of the reason why I'm really excited about it is all the stuff that I've learned from a martial arts perspective is now being kind of tethered and tied into some scientific concepts, which means I can kind of pull some things apart, put them back together, both in my martial arts and my MovNat background. So today we're going to just kind of keep talking about some of those specific things, but I really do believe that if you know how your musculature works, even on a very basic level, you can actually get some more conscious gains. And when I say gains, I mean in strength, I mean mobility, I mean strength in your mobility, possibly even your flexibility, but it's going to really help you when you're trying to do more complex movements. Now, if you already have a physical education background of some kind, you probably know a lot of this stuff. But if you don't, even these basics have really helped me in the last 30 days with a lot of the training that I've been doing personally on my own. I've gotten a lot stronger at my core movements, at my pull-up movements, and I've even been feeling a lot better about my cardio burst and sort of like just recruitment style movement and training. So if anybody does have any questions throughout, Abra and I are both going to be kind of looking at the comments, but we're going to try and just go through this based on what I posted in the description. All right, with that said, let's start the top-down check-in. I'm going to move the microphone a little bit. Please let me know if you have any trouble seeing or hearing me. All right, let's just start with the head and neck. Move it however you need to. Play with your shoulders, make sure they're maybe up for a second, then drop them down. Try and integrate the movements of the neck with the shoulders, lowering them, getting that full range of motion. Add a little bit of extra weight if you need to. Just let gravity do the pulling. Try and actively move your head to one side with a little bit of resistance. Do it the other way, again, with a little bit of resistance. Okay, when you're ready, start rolling your shoulders out in whichever way feels comfortable. Do some small, light arm movements. Make them bigger. Go back the other way. Abra and I went to a Muay Thai gym called Chop and Chops the other night. Well, MMA gym, martial arts place. You know, it's in Brooklyn. It's really cool. They did like the elbows and the wrists and everything like that. Really nice, simple breakdowns, but really effective warm-ups and mobility stretches and everything like that.
Joint lubrication.
Joint lubrication. Get lubricated, folks. Whatever you need to do to get those arms going, but of course I always like my tight circles with the pressed out palms into bigger circles, going through that spiral. Bigger, 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 bigger. Activating through the back and the chest just a little bit, and then going back the other way around. And again, when you come back, you can do crane's beaks if you want, stretching out the forearms, getting the wrists a little bit activated, and bringing it in. Let's do some body slaps. As you go, try and keep the biceps and triceps a little bit active, rather than flopping all the way through. Sometimes you can do both. Try and have that active chest and back. Okay. Just swim it out a little bit. Swim it out up top. Okay. Let's go through the chest. Side to side. I think it's Abra that likes to say do the matrix. See how low you can go, but of course, try and do it progressively. You know, you don't want to just like wake up first thing in the morning and go, ah! You'll be stuck that way all day. Right. Keep it up. Maybe a little side to side. Maybe a little bit of reach. Stretching out the obliques. Stretching out the back. Reaches across like Abra likes to do. She's trying to like do mobility while doing the camera. It's kind of weird looking. She's like, yeah, yeah.
Well, it's like the thing that Josh does.
Yeah. Let's go into the hips. Just like a lot of the theme that we're going to be doing today, squeeze the ductors, ab and ad, and then squeeze the glutes to try and get them involved in the hips. So squeeze to push forward, and then squeeze to push back. Squeeze these to push back, squeeze this to push forward. Get that nice and activated. And then when you're ready, you can do it nice and loose. Into the knees. Typical one that we can do. One of the things I saw is that they actually, I think this was at Chop and Chops?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put the feet in shoulder width to do the knees, which I thought was a cool little extra concept. They don't have a website, right?
Oh, no, they do. I can look it up.
Yeah, that would be nice. 'Cause they're really cool. I like them a lot.
Yeah. And hat tip to Christine DeTalvo, who told me about them.
Yeah. Let's do some calf raises. Just to warm up the ankles before we get into them. And then let's do some ankle warm-ups. Some nice little rolls. Go whichever way you need to. Try and also play with the toes a little bit. Other foot when you're ready. Ooh, I'm feeling that all over. Okay. Let's do our folds just real quick. Hip fold. Okay. Squat fold. We'll talk about these later in the video. And pressing out with the knee. And of course you can always press out to one side, the other, just to give a little bit more weight to one side, a little bit of distribution.
I like little shovels.
It's making me think about what I'm doing a little bit more. All right, I'm going to very quickly up the ISO on the camera. Like it that dark. I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming nobody.
I like that.
All right, let's do our back bend, or not back bend, our little spillover. So stand straight up. Breathe in. Chin to chest. Chest to abs. Abs to the lower body. Back through the hamstrings. Extend through the quads just a little bit. Backs of the hands start reaching towards the ground if you can. It's okay for your legs to bend here.
because we're just letting ourselves kind of go down. Activate the quads. Start erecting your legs. Bringing it up through one little spinal column at a time. The vertebrae going one at a time. And then the head comes up. Great. Just do some reach backs. Or whatever. Alright. So the first thing that we're going to get into are some action flow warm-ups with some crawls. So whatever you want to do, flow across the ground a little bit. If you want to do kick-throughs, if you want to roll around, try and keep the shoulders active. Try and keep the chest and the back involved. We'll talk about that in a second. However you want to just warm your body up with some of the movements that we know. Now I'm just doing some switches into hip ups, front transitions. Hands on the ground, kick back, kick through, back, kick back, kick through, kick back, kick through. Lower myself to the ground. Let's just do some rollovers to the side. A little side kick out of it. Now the other side kick. So plant the inside foot, extend the outside foot. Spring back, spring in. All right, my feed stopped again.
No, mine is still going strong.
On the computer?
Yeah.
I'll never understand this. But my OBS is going, so just so I can see myself, I'm gonna keep that on. All right, since I'm on the ground, gotta lower the microphone a bit. All right, so let's go through some of those crawling motions we were talking about. Let's actually start with the basic hand-foot crawl from MovNat. Now, I want my knees under my hips. I want my hands under my shoulders. I want to try and straighten my back just a little bit. I don't want to arch it, although if we want to, we can do some undulations just to warm it up a little bit. Feel the space, try and notice what position we want to be in. I've got my camera on me so I can kind of see it in real time. And so you can start with a hand-knee crawl, contralateral movements. Should be nice and easy. You don't really have to use too much muscle recruitment for this one. You just have to post on both sides, your knees and your hands. And that'll just help you kind of establish the pattern of movement you want to go for. So with the hand-knee crawl, first thing that you're going to do, or the hand-foot crawl, is that once you get into that established position, you're going to raise the knees off the ground and put the weight into your toes. So let's just do that a few times. Now because the knees are bent right now, we're flexing the hamstrings. So now what we're going to do is you're going to keep those nice and tight as we go, but we're pushing with the quad to create the movement. So when I push this leg, that's my quad firing. When I push that leg, that's my quad firing. Now I can keep the knees bent, but I'm still pushing. So let's just
Just go back and forth through this a couple more times. As you reach with the hands, keep the pecs squeezed like you're holding your plank. You're activating this to press into the ground with the front of your body. Let's just keep going just a little bit longer, just to warm up. Try and keep your back level. It's a little hard even for me, especially going forwards and backwards. Pick up the pace. And slow it down. Turn around. So again, what we were doing there is that we were extending like this, but we were extending this into the push. So as we're extending this into the push, we're firing our quads the same way we'd be coming up from a squat. So it's that erection or that extension of the leg. You would refer to it as erecting your body. Just figure out how to say that word cleanly if you're pushing up against gravity in order to raise up. So you're definitely just extending it on the ground because you're not lifting your body up. But when you're standing up, it's erecting your body against gravity. That's why the quads from the ISSA textbook can be referred to as like anti-gravity muscles. They're not going to make you float, but they work against gravity to keep you upright as you walk throughout your day. So now let's go into the inverted crawl, which is still a hand-foot crawl, but you're upside down. It's also referred to as the crab crawl in animal flow, or back when you were a child in elementary school or high school, or still today. All right. It is a supinated crawl from a supinated position. So again, as we always do, we just activate here just to raise the tailbone up off the ground. Activate here to raise the tailbone up off the ground. Go again. Extend forward to a little bit of a tabletop. If you want to move your feet out a little bit, you can now focus on your hip raise. We're going to keep our feet on the ground all the way through, warming up the ankles with this movement, pushing through the hips. It's like a little upside down hinge. Then I'm going to step through just a little bit or step back depending on my legs and how long they are. And I'm going to go all the way through the ball of the feet and push out, stretching out the back just a little bit, firing up through the back, so I'm pressing through here, and I'm kind of stretching my stomach muscles out. So I'm not holding them tight just yet, although I can, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'll come back down. All right, so into the crawl now. When I go into the crawl, I'm really focusing on pushing down through the triceps. Those are also erecting the body now, so they're extending. Now but you should know that muscles never technically push, they just get tighter, and that's how they pull the joints into alignment. And that's why when you see them flexing, that's why you can see them popping out, because they're getting tighter and shorter and they're pulling the body. So my tricep is actually going to make my forearm move. So I extend through those, and then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to contract my back muscles. So I'm really focusing on the trapezius muscles, and I'm also kind of firing through the rhomboids, and then my delts are going to support the rest of my arm. Everything going okay on the video?
Yeah, I was going to just zoom in for a second, but we're good.
No, that's fine. So now, when I lift off the ground, I'm not just lifting my tailbone. Again, I'm pushing through my triceps, squeezing my back, making sure my deltoids are nice and secure. And you'll notice that my chest is now broad and opened up. That's because I'm squeezing through the back of my body, the posterior side. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk forward. You'll notice a little bit of extension in my legs. But what I'm really doing is I'm still keeping them slightly bent for the purpose of traversal efficiency. And then I'm pulling with the legs. So that's actually, when I walk backwards, it's a little bit different, but that's actually really focusing on that pulling feeling
which would be your hamstrings. So really remember to pull yourself. And let's just kind of go back and forth a few times, trying to maintain holding your body together rather than wibbling and wobbling. No timey-wimey here, okay?
Aww.
No timey-wimey. Your triceps should be firing the whole time. Don't let your arms bend if you can manage it. Try and keep your tailbone down so that you can kind of keep your chest and back up. You don't want to necessarily go here. You absolutely can, but it's going to be a little bit safer on your shoulders to keep them aligned directly under you rather than behind you like this. It's kind of the one place where the shoulders aren't as designed to go, even though they can go everywhere else. So you want to try and keep them in line with the body. A couple more laps. If you want, you can always turn around and go back the other way. And again, we're moving contralaterally, but this one's, for most people, way harder than the normal one. All right, settle down, shake out the arms, play with the wrists a little bit, let them relax. You're gonna feel a lot better now. Or you're not, I don't know. I'm not you, I can't tell you what you feel.
You're gonna feel something.
So there you go, that's just some basic stuff that you wanna think about. I like to think that the normal crawl is really a quad dominant move, and the inverted crawl is a hamstring dominant move. It can change when you're going in reverse. So I'm extending there, but then I'm kind of, let's see here. So it's complicated when you're not just doing it. I'm extending there, and then it's pulling, but then it's pushing when I'm going forward. I'm extending and pulling. So when I'm saying pull or push, that's really the movement. That's the biomechanics. That's not the musculature, because the muscles only pull. It's really better to use the word squeeze, but do what you do.
We have a question from Graham.
Graham, what do you want to know, Graham?
Hey, Dylan, any tips for dealing with wrist pain?
So I've been doing these moves for a long time. So my wrists don't get as agitated as other people's will initially, but I have had some clients where they're like doing it for a couple of seconds and they're like, ah. Definitely stretch them out in between rounds. Even animal flow people will typically, like, as they're conditioning themselves, they'll stop for a minute, they'll stretch their wrists, shake them out a little bit. I don't know if there's really a lactic acid buildup in the wrist, but there's definitely one in the forearms. The pronators and supinators are really what's supporting the wrist. You have little muscles here that pull the wrist like this, but they're so small, yeah, you want to just mobilize them a little bit, but these are going to be part of your support chain. The stronger you build your support chain with the triceps, maybe the biceps, depending on if you're bending the arm, like in the normal crawl sometimes. All of these things are going to create the structure to kind of support the smaller joints. The smaller joints still need to be strong, but if this is really loose, it's just going to be putting more pressure into that. Think about, and I learned this lesson the hard way, if the tires on your bike are flat, it's going to be harder for the bike to move, plus it could damage the wheels and the spokes. I learned that the hard way. The human body isn't much different. You want to think about powering the muscles and the structure almost as if filling the tire with air. Obviously, you don't want to overfill it because then you're unpacking the structure and it's going to hurt you just as much in the long run. You're not necessarily going to pop though.
Yeah.
Unless you like really overdo it with like a deadlift or a squat or a bench press. Blow out your chest muscles. So, you know, get that pop. Okay, anyways. So yeah, that's what I would say is take breaks as often as you need to, but keep practicing. Breathe, activate your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can kind of relax the tension in your body and you can really feel out what's going on here. And yeah, take breaks often until you need to take less.
Can I just add to that real quick?
Sure, Abra has a point.
If you are experiencing a lot of wrist pain, it might also be helpful to do crawls inverted is difficult, but doing a foot handball, the normal one with fists can be helpful.
That will actually increase the structure of the wrists as part of the reason why we do the Kung Fu push-ups on our wrists, to keep this all activated a little bit tighter, the same way that you would activate it with a punch, versus this. This is extensors and this is flexors. And the flexors activate the forearm. The extensors also activate the forearm, but a little bit further up it, and they kind of go through the shoulder all the way through. I mean, they both kind of connect as far as you can get them, but this is, again, another base of support. It is a lot harder to do the crawls with the fist because you're not spreading out your base of support, so it makes it a lot more narrow. But if you have the balance and you have the strength, give it a shot. I'm not going to do it today, though. I don't feel like demoing that. So next up on our list of things that we're doing, so that I can remember, planks and hollow bodies. So this is going to be really focusing on the chest, on both sides, really, but also really on the core and the transverse abdominis. So the transverse abdominis, and again, I kind of got this concept more from Athlean-X, but I also looked at the anatomy in the ISSA textbook, is kind of the layer of muscle underneath your abs. It's another piece of the abs, but it's not the rectus abdominis, which is this way. It's kind of the six-pack, and it's really just contained here on the front. The obliques are on the sides, it's what we know, and they're not just for this type of bending. This is really more of the back. They're really for the rotation. So we're learning a little bit more of that as we go through the textbook and as I start looking through Jeff Cavalier's program and everything like that. But if you want to work the inside part of the core, the transverse abdominis, which is kind of this band around that connects all of that, that's actually from squeezing. That's what the squeeze is. So think about this as the tube that would squeeze your internal organs together. So when you like breathe out, it squeezes together. And that's actually going to be that under layer that keeps you from having like a big puffed out gut. Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, in Kung Fu and Tai Chi and everything, we would refer to this as the Tai Chi belly. If you want to Uncle Iroh it, you basically breathe in and push your stomach out. Now, that's a good piece of musculature to have too, and it's helped me like prevent punches from getting through too hard. It protects because you're breathing all the way through your back and everything like that. It can add that little bit of extra air-filled padding like we were talking about with the tire for when you're like, you know, you hit the ground and then you can blow it out. But what we need to do in order to kind of keep building that tightness in the core is we need to squeeze it as we hold some of these contractions. So I'm going to do a 3 to 5 breath in a row plank hold. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on squeezing my chest, but also squeezing my core together. And maybe what you'll see is my back kind of getting more into alignment, which we'll talk about more during the Hollowbody. So I go up into my plank however I want to. I always like just going from the ground because then you can set the perfect length of your body. And then I'm going to come up like this. I'm going to squeeze through the arms. And what you'll notice is now that my back's rounded, but then I'm going to breathe out and squeeze through my abs. And as I do that, I'm extending my core just a little bit, so now my back is much flatter again. So I'm holding that contraction. It's kind of pulling my back, my spine down into my abs, rather than breathing in and pushing it out. I'm squeezing it down, and then I'm going to squeeze the glutes too and keep the whole thing nice and strong. And as I do that, I'm giving myself just a little bit more structure. And it's sort of really a lot harder to hold. So let me do 3 breaths. I'm not going to really fill the stomach and make it bigger. I'm just going to keep feeling that squeeze. Don't overdo it if you have like a hernia or something. And one more. And then relax. So again, it's that full activated body. It's that sort of maximal recruitment of more muscle groups. It's not just relying on the arms and the joints. It's really about squeezing everything together so that you get that fully empowered structure. Again, it's that sending the electricity through the bat wings. Batman bat wings, not, I don't think bats have electric powers.
Not yet.
Not yet. Fukushima. So let's go one more time. Just see what we can do with this. Again, 3 to 5 breaths, which I was doing it a lot longer because it was explaining things. So lower yourself. You can breathe in here, and then breathe out as you rise. Squeeze the abs, squeeze the shoulders, squeeze the chest. Breathe out. As you breathe out, squeeze the abs so that you're working the transverse abdominis. Yeah, I think my form is a lot straighter than it usually is. Yep. Okay, and let it down. So as you can see, when you squeeze the abs, the spine actually gets longer because the abs are pulling the front of the body, which means that the back has to straighten out. Now, I mean, if you bend over, yes, you're contracting the rectus abdominis, and that's important to have that flexion there. But then when you squeeze everything underneath, it's going to push back against it. And then you can pull with your back muscles to open up further. So if we were going to do Superman today, I'd pretty much talk about squeezing the lats and all the muscles in the lumbar spine, but I'm not going to focus on that today. Instead, we're going to take this same concept and go into the hollow body. Hollow bodies. So I actually recently just completed a program designed by Carrie Pierce. I believe she's a CrossFit teacher with her own gym. It's called Pierce Power Abs. It's a 30-day program. It's really just a bunch of very simple WODs, workout of the day from CrossFit, focusing on core. They're all body weight, but they are really good unless you absolutely have no idea absolutely how your abs work. So again, I watched these videos from Athlean-X, and that was about halfway through the program, and I was like, what Jeff's talking about in terms of firing the core like we were just displaying was super, super, super informative and helped me actually get more out of the very quickly put together but very efficient ab workout that I got from the Pierce Power Abs program. The hollow body is a perfect example of the difference that you will feel between firing your core and not through that transverse abdominis and rectus abdominis squeeze. So the hollow body is, you're pretty much laying on your back. Almost every gymnast knows about this. You put your arms above your shoulders. I think it's really actually important to try and squeeze your arms together. You can have them apart like this, but this is also going to help round the back. This is going to kind of open it up and flatten it. This is also going to activate the chest, which needs to squeeze together to get that banana shape. And then you should also squeeze the legs together at all times. So instead of having them loose like this, you want to try and bring them together with those adductors, squeezing, and then kind of like also squeezing the glutes to hold all that together. But here's the part that's always tricky. Once you're laying back, you'll notice there's this curve in my spine, and there's actually a little bit of a gap. Now, I'm pretty good at getting rid of that gap, but there's always still something there, and I was trying to figure out what that was. Well, you go into your plank mentality about squeezing that transverse abdominis and the rectus abdominis, and now all of a sudden my lower back is touching the ground. Ta-da! So by firing this and crunching this, squeezing this, I'm actually getting my back way lower to the ground than if I do this. You can't really see it on the camera, it's very minimal. Can you zoom in on this? You're gonna mostly notice it from like the shadow of it, but pretty much this to that. This to that. That's pushing my back out and down into the ground. If I have it here, I can slide this through. If I do that, I can't slide it through anymore. So when you're holding that hollow body, don't have any distance, squeeze there, and now you're gonna get it a lot tighter. And man, that 30 seconds is so much more intense on my abs. I love it. So let's do again 3 or 4 breaths in the hollow body position. You're gonna fire those pieces of muscle, and then you're gonna kind of create that banana shape. So I'm here, my arms are out, my head starts down on the ground. I squeeze the abs. If I squeeze the abs, notice how it raises my back up off the ground to start. So rather than just lifting my chest, I squeeze my abs to come up off the ground to start. And then I raise through the rectus abdominis a little bit higher, and then I use the muscles at the bottom to kind of bring the legs up, and I keep this fired the whole time. and then I lower it down, which that's the hard part because my spine definitely starts to bend there. But what are you gonna do, right? It's all a process. So let's do that one more time. Squeeze through here to get this up off the ground, not relying on the chest and upper back, but actually relying on firing those flexion muscles in the rectus abdominis and the transverse abdominis. It's kind of like just bring yourself up a little bit. Arms above your head is going to obviously be a little bit harder of a workout because you're displacing your weight out above your center more. If you need to, you can do a knee tuck and then roll your back into the ground. Again, squeezing everything through here. You can have your hands here. It all depends on your level of fitness, but please start from here. So even if you're just bringing your knees up off the ground like that and just sitting up, even if you're just holding your legs, squeeze here. So one more hollow body hold. Ready? I'll move down a little bit. Nice and bright and shiny.
Yeah.
Look at that arch in my back. That's no good, although it's a nice little stretch. My rib cage is nice and open, but that means that it's separate from the abs. So now I squeeze here, bringing it all together, raising myself. Oh God, am I Jar Jar Binks? Myself off the ground. Trying to push my spine into the ground by squeezing my abs. And bring it down. Trying to find a way to keep my back from arching too much. Alright, so that's as simple and complicated as we're going to get with that move today. So, if anybody has any questions, let me know. I don't think they do yet. So then we're going to look at squats and hinges, glutes and ductors, ab and ad, because in order to hold that shape, you kind of have to constantly be working between the two pieces of tension, unless you have that much control that you only have to work through one. All right. So let's talk about that squat very briefly. There's a longer video on my personal Instagram @dhinsaction. It's an IGTV video. It's about 6 minutes long. It's completely ridiculous, but it'll give you a little bit more information. I just don't want to take 6 minutes to explain this today. But real quick, if you have a hyper flexible deep squat, and this is where you're at, if your knees are rolling in, then your ankles are also rolling in. Now, you know, if you want to just rest here, that's not a problem. See how I can easily move throughout it. My back is nice and tucked over my knees pretty much. My armpits are pretty much just resting on my knees. I could probably sleep here. I've tried. I probably could. Just, you know, like our great ancestors, like living in trees and everything like that. I mean, like, you know, I don't want to be eaten by a bear or a lion. Stupid leopards can climb trees. But, you know, that's not bad for just being able to sit. But if we want to actually work on increasing our strength, I need to keep that arch in my foot. And in order to keep that arch in my foot, I need to squeeze the abductors to keep the knees open. And then I need to compensate with the adductors as I go down, which we'll talk about in a second. But the most important thing is I need to squeeze my glutes, the same way that we'll be focusing on that in a squat motion coming up. But we also want to think about it as we're going down. A lot of the times when we go down in a squat, we kind of open everything out, which isn't necessarily wrong, but as you do that, your knees are going to start caving in, and that's going to go into your ankles if you have hyperflexible ankles. So we want to keep pushing everything out. So the only way to push everything out with the abductors is to also squeeze the glutes to hold that out. So this is without the glute squeeze, this is with the glute squeeze. It's that simple. And when you're doing something like a kettlebell swing, keeping all that active is going to protect your lower back. But let's go vertical, right? So into this squat, if I just open everything up and drop down, I get nice and loosey-goosey. And again, in my video, I showed that you don't really want to fall that way. That's going to hurt your hips. So I squeeze the glutes as I go down, which is going to require me to go a lot slower, holding the legs apart. And now I'm also sitting a lot more upright. So even if you want to start from down here, what?
Nothing.
You still want to hold yourself more upright. So squeeze as you go down. Try and push the arch of your foot up so that you're kind of focusing on creating that abduction. Try not to roll your back. If this is as low as you can get, great. If this is as low as you can get, great. I just want you to squeeze through here. And then that's also going to help you with your horse stance. And if you can get all the way down and hold that squeeze, now your legs are opened up a little bit more, and you can keep that spine more straight. And you're probably going to be bringing your transverse abdominis into this too, but not your rectus abdominis. But you're squeezing through the back, you're squeezing through the glutes, you're squeezing through the posterior chain, so that when you come up from that squat, now everything's active, and that's actually more the adductors squeezing you up. So the abductors keep you from going too far out, but they brace you. Well, actually, that's probably the adductors, but ductors are weird like that. They just both work at the same time, in my opinion. I could be wrong. So one more time, sit down, hold that open, rather than letting it roll in. Hold it open, squeeze the glutes, sit up straighter. All right, so let's just do that 3 times in a row. So ready, 1. I lost it for a second. 2. And 3. So nice, slow, power-driven squats, or tension-driven, depending on how you want to phrase it. Let's finish up with that hip hinge. Again, same thing. I'm going to squeeze my legs out to create room. It's not going to be helpful to do the hip hinge with the knees coming together. That's too loose. I'm sure there's a move like this that you can do, but I feel a lot of strain on my hips when I do that. So by, again, firing the adductors, I feel a strain on my hips. They're not curving in together, and that's, again, also recruiting the glutes. So all this muscle recruitment stuff is a big deal if you want specific gains. If you are flippy, floppy, hyper flexible, you're going to be weaker. So, but because you have that range of motion, you can get stronger across it. You just have to know how you're activating your muscles across that range of motion. So I'm pretty flexible. I can sit all the way back, but if my knees turn in, I'm hurting my hips. So I squeeze everything here, I sit back, I squeeze my stomach, so now my spine's also staying much straighter, and I'm literally just sitting back. I don't need to go lower than that, I'm really pushing. If I relax my spine, this is what happens. So in order to keep my spine erect, I squeeze the abs, squeeze the glutes to keep my back straight, push up. Sit back, holding that contraction, push up. Back, push up. And then I'm also doing that deadlift sort of push by squeezing the abs to make the hip hinge go forward. So let's just do these 5 times, get a little workout out of it. Slowly push. Push back up, 1. Slowly push. Squeeze back up, 2. Slowly push. Squeeze back up, 3. 4. 5. I'm really feeling that firing as I'm coming up. Our roommate Dash, who's a personal trainer, likes to argue that the deadlift isn't a lower back exercise. It's really more of a leg exercise. I am kind of tempted to agree with him. I don't think it's a quad dominant exercise though, because the squat starts here, whereas the deadlift starts here holding that weight, and then it starts here pushing that weight forward. The glutes are still involved in a squat, but they're really supporting the quads, whereas in the hip hinge, they're really driving the quads. And that's the primary versus secondary muscle group in an exercise, right, Abra?
Yes.
And again, we learned that from our textbook. So, just keep those things in mind. That is really more the posterior chain pushing the movement This is really more the anterior chain pushing the movement because your quads are very dominantly involved. So pick any move and try and figure out, like if you're doing a lunge, where I'm squeezing my glutes, where I'm squeezing my quad, where I'm kind of firing my hamstring for stability in that bent leg. Try and figure that stuff out, and you'll be able to consciously make more gains, because not only are you paying attention to what the muscle's doing, you're trying to recruit it a lot stronger for that specific movement. And when you do that, like we were talking about earlier with Graham, that's going to protect your smaller joints. It's going to protect all your joints. That's really going to protect your knee. Your ankle's going to be more protected by the calf and the soleus and the tibia anterior, but tibialis anterior. I'm trying to remember the exact words. But if you fire those muscle groups, you are protecting the joints. And that's really important as we want to get stronger, especially in skills like climbing, crawling, all body weight exercises, and anything that's very core dominant. So that's my spiel on that. Those are those basic exercises. We're going to go into a little bit of a Savate flow warm-up. So I'm going to set a timer, because we just kind of moved very small with contractions. But now I want us to really focus on moving much faster and more explosively. So I've set this for 10 rounds, but let's do 5 just to get through it faster. Turn off my, there we go. Just gonna move around and try and build explosive combos. So whether that's your jab, cross, kick, you can start slow, boom, boom, kick. Whether you want to do your side kick, your chassé, or whether you want to do your roundhouse kick, your fouetté, try and land and throw punches out of every kick. So if I throw that front chassé, I can jab, cross. If I throw that front fouetté, I can cross, hook. Whatever works for you. Boom, cross, jab. Boom, jab, cross, whichever number from S series if you know it. Take a 15-second break, but bounce around. Don't stop bouncing. Get those plyometrics in. If you want to bounce low and come high, that's okay. But really, again, we're focusing on adductors and abductors. Squeezing the body. Squeeze the glutes too. Try and focus on all the stuff we just talked about through every kick and every punch. Every kick and every punch. Now you're going to look a lot tighter. Kick, punch. That was over there. I pull the hamstring. Boom, I throw that uppercut. I squeeze the lat. I squeeze the glutes behind it. Jab, cross, chassé, right? Jab, cross, fouetté. Jab, cross, revers. Jab, cross, revers frontal. All right, bounce around for that off round. Keep it going. You should be getting a little bit of cardio right now, especially if you're squeezing everything. Your body is recruiting maximally. You can go loose if you need to relax it, and then when that round comes back on, squeeze it all. Cross, jab, rear hook or a swing, jab, cross, lead hook, jab, cross, lead hook, cross, jab, rear hook or swing. All right? Jab, cross, lead hook, chassé. Let's do that. Jab, cross, lead hook, chassé. Jab, cross, lead hook, chassé. Jab, cross, lead hook, chassé. I'm squeezing the muscles as I'm moving. I go back the other way. All right, let's do some jag step. Bring that lead foot forward and backwards. Really squeezing through the calves. As the foot comes backwards, your hamstring's activating. As it's going forwards, your quad's activating. All right, we'll switch leads if we want to. Low fouetté. Low fouetté. Again, the hamstring and the quad are working together to keep me on balance. Bent leg, extended leg. Bent leg, extended leg. Quad firing, hamstring firing. Low to high. So what are you doing there? Hamstring, quad. Hamstring, quad. All right, bounce around a little bit. Jag step maybe on the other side if you haven't already. It's an in and out. It's not quite the Ali shuffle. It's a little bit different. All right, let's get some punches back in. Let's do uppercuts, squeezing the chest to bring them in front of the body. If you were to squeeze the back, they'd be on the outside. So squeeze in, uppercut, uppercut, frontal, revers, or revers, frontal. Uppercut, uppercut, French is weird. Uppercut, uppercut, revers, lateral. Uppercut, uppercut. So you're going from squeezing the chest to squeezing the back. Opening up nice and broad for those kicks. Creating that support in the lats. Obviously, you can also support through the rib cage, through squeezing the abs. Just depends on what you're doing to generate the power. If I'm doing that revers, there's not much reason for me to crunch my chest because I'm pulling the hamstring, so I want the whole posterior chain to pull it back. And if I'm firing the fouette, it's the opposite. I start with the chassé, with the load, I pull everything back, squeezing the bow, and then I crunch in. And I can fire the whole stomach system to squeeze that kick in harder. Just a lot of really fun little things you can learn from these simple exercises. I guarantee with the muscle recruitment, I pretty much do guarantee, and it's not like I can really guarantee because you're not paying anything, so you're not going to get your money back, and I can't give you your time back, but I guarantee that if you want to get ripped, you have to understand these subsystems. Because if you just do repetitive motions, not only are you going to wear out your joints, you're not really activating the muscle anyways, and that means that you're probably recruiting the muscles that you're not trying to train. So if you want definition in your abs, you can't get definition in your abs by firing your back muscles. You have to fire your abs at all times. So even if you're doing your basic sit-ups, I don't want to see shoulders crunching into the stomach. I want to see the stomach lifting up the shoulders. And if you don't already know that stuff, that's my gift to you. Years and years and years of not understanding it led to a lot of wasted time in my physical development. That doesn't mean that it wasn't worth it. I got a lot of mental development into my physical development, but the second I started learning more about recruiting muscles, I got so much better at everything. And it's just been steps by steps by steps. But that's part of the reason why I wanted to get my CPT and not just be a martial arts guy. I really wanted to understand the science, and even in the first 200 pages of the book, things are so much clearer to me now. So that's why I recommend that if you want to be part of physical culture, learn how the body actually works. Don't be lazy and just say, well, this is how I move. Movement is great, but movement without muscle recruitment is empty. It's an empty cup. There's nothing in it. It weighs a lot less. And, oh, well, let's say this. It's way easier to knock off of a table. You fill that cup, and we're not talking the Bruce Lee thing, but you fill that cup, you get that water in there, it keeps it stuck to that table. It's a little bit harder to push. So just consider that. What's that? Cat will always try, and cat will usually succeed. Cat is stronger than cup. So yeah, let's see if there's any comments. Stretch out however you want to. I'm going to sit here. Robert can let me know if there's any comments.
Nope.
Well, if there's any that come up, we'll give them 5 minutes, maybe. I've definitely explained my spiel already for today, though. I can also say that some stretching requires activation, some stretching requires relaxation. It just depends on what you're going for. And I should definitely extend my leg and reach forward. So when you're stretching, you're still firing one muscle group, but you're relaxing another, which allows you to sink into it. And then if I also fire the calf, then I can stretch the front of the leg. If I relax the calf, then I can squeeze and activate the front of the leg and relax the back of the leg. Do we have any eyeballs on this show, or has it just been way too technical? So yeah, let me know. Do you think this show's been way too technical? Do you think that kind of takes away from your enjoyment of it? I tried to keep exercises interspersed. I'm sweating, which means that I must have done something right, other than just talk. But again, it's exactly like I made this big post about cult leaders and everything the other day. Don't steal. Give attribution to the people that you've learned from. So as much as I think he's kind of overly developed in his own way, I really appreciate what Jeff Cavaliere puts out for free. You can watch any of his videos on YouTube and learn a whole lot. And his commitment to how he says this stuff, I have a feeling that he's not lying about it in the free videos. I think he's really trying to attract solid content through creating solid content. And then, you know, ISSA, if you want to get CPT, someone was arguing on the ISSA page the other day, well, this isn't a nationally accredited test, and I was like, they literally just announced earlier this year that they've gotten national accreditation through the NCAA, which is the organization that will accredit you. I guess academically would be a way to think about it. It has to be peer-reviewed, basically. Like, it has to be stringently decided that it is something people can learn from and put to practical use. And then it usually requires a closed book test, so you really have to know your material. I'm going to hopefully pass that version of the test at some point, but you can start with the open book, which is really wonderful, and still get a certification that most gyms will accept, but some won't. They'll want NASM right off the bat. And then, of course, you know, I'm pulling a lot from MovNat. And part of the reason why I'm pulling from MovNat is because their linguistic description of the biomechanics is the sharpest and most concise, although sometimes the words are a little bit long combinations, but you always know what they're talking about when they're saying what movement they're doing. But that's the thing too. When I first signed up for it, I asked, hey, am I going to learn anatomy? Am I going to learn kinesiology? And they were like, no. And I was like, oh man. But I learned those biomechanics, so now I can fill those biomechanics with anatomy and kinesiology from what I've learned in ISSA and from some of the tips from Jeff Cavalier and plenty of YouTube University, basically. So even right now, I'm squeezing my glutes so that I can roll cleaner. What?
We got a comment from Tyler.
What's Tyler want?
Sorry I kept you waiting. First one of these, as for technical, no, I think this was rather direct. Of course, I learned by doing it.
I don't think you can really learn this stuff without doing it. Even when I'm going through my textbook, I try and do some of the moves, or I try and squeeze parts of my body to kind of know what they're talking about. Or I go downstairs and I do a little bit of a workout and I really think about the chapter I just read. I'm sure when I get to the cardio chapter, I'm really going to enjoy that. I'm not going to enjoy it. I hate cardio. I need cardio, but I hate cardio. Thank you, Tyler, though. That's really helpful that you felt like there was something to get out of this.
I mean, wait, think about it for a second. What did you just do for 5 minutes?
I don't know.
Pretty sure that was cardio.
Oh, well, it wasn't even 5 minutes, though. It was like 3.5.
Almost.
But yeah, that's a light amount of cardio. Anytime I go over 10 minutes, I'm dead. All right, it's noon. We don't really have any more comments right now. The show's been going for an hour, so I don't want to overdo it, and I've got a client at 2 that I need to prep for. If you have any further questions, feel free to comment on the video. We always get notified so that we know what's going on. I'm going to type in, as always, our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We could really use some people watching that. Hit the subscribe button so that whenever we release a new video, which I need to get on, you will see that video first and foremost. It'll just pop up on your phone or on your desktop. And one last thing. Casey Lynn Delaney says, flippy floppy is a legitimate, accurate word for the description of hyper-flexible people. For those that don't know, Casey is a professional, at least I consider you a professional. I don't know if you do, but I would. Contortionist and kind of clowning performer. Let me know if I got that wrong. She has incredible physical body control, and I got to work with her when I did the Saga Gainesville workshops. If she has any misgivings about her own ability, she can state them. I'm not going to speak for her about them. But what she's describing is that there's some people, I would imagine, and I've heard this before, I could be wrong again, that get into contortion and think it's just about being loosey-goosey, when in reality it is completely about muscle recruitment, because otherwise you will certainly damage yourself. So Casey can let us know what she thinks of that when she feels like it, or she can just say, Dylan, you're completely wrong, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, which I will also completely admit to if I don't. I am correct! Woo! Sorry, didn't mean to blow out your speakers. I am not completely dumb. Thank you, Casey, for saying I'm not completely dumb.
Yay. On that note.
The last thing, I do have to bring this up. If you haven't signed up already, Virtual Hero Academy is happening. I hate the word virtual, but it's much better than digital because I get this nice little logo out of it where it's a V, an H, and an A, so it kind of has this funny inverse symmetry to it. I'm weird like that. But, what? Push-ups and abs. Oh, is that for contortion? That's really cool. I didn't think about push-ups as much. Virtual Hero Academy, $10 per class. The only thing that I ask is that you buy a 3-pack, a 5-pack, or a 10-pack. I don't really want to sell one class per person. I think $30 for 3 hours of training is more than reasonable, and I'd love, if you only decide to do one class, $30 for an hour is still probably what I would typically charge. But I want people to get as much out of it because I want to build a community. So if you're in this chat and you've been interested in paying up and joining, please do. Just start with 3, add more if you want later. I'm going to try and do classes as often as possible, but what's really going to be cool is I'm going to survey all the people that sign up and base the class schedule on the students that sign up because I have a lot of free time. And it's really easy to set the stuff up and just do the classes. All right, let's end this now. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I will see you all either next week or sooner. Take care, everybody, and have an excellent day. I'm going to turn off my screen.